exciting, isn't it? You don't know when I'm going to start. No, oh yeah, I was going to tell this story today because it's getting close to the end of the retreat. Another 24 hours and we'll be doing our closing ceremonies. Some of you apparently, because you've got aircraft to catch to go back to interstate, some of you will be, I think, leaving this evening. Is it Leha or?
Tomorrow morning.
Oh, tomorrow morning, okay. So you think. How many of you have already started packing? Wonderful. Either you're very good disciples, or you're too embarrassed to admit the truth. But this story was told to me by a friend many years ago. He was a New Zealander, and he decided, instead of going to Thailand to become a monk, he went over to Korea, South Korea, to become a monk. And once he ordained as a monk in South Korea, they gave him the Buddhist name Hamwol. I always remember him as Hamwol. I don't even remember his lay name. But anyway, he was a very good meditator, so he thought. So he went to one of the toughest monasteries in South Korea. Because in that monastery, every year they did a retreat, just one retreat, which lasted for 60 days. Not 9 days, not days off, but 60 days. He described what it was like doing a retreat in the, what's it called, the tradition over in South Korea. And they said you'd wake up in the morning, every morning at 4 o'clock, and you just meditate. 45 minutes meditation, and after 45 minutes meditation, 50 minutes walking altogether, and after 50 minutes walking, 45 minutes meditation, and then 50 minutes walking. And then you have breakfast, which we serve to you right where you are, the same old miserable, boring stuff every day. And after meditation, sitting meditation, walking meditation, sitting, I think they had a time for a shower, sort of but it's the same time, 15 minutes. And when it came down for lunch, the lunch was served right where you are. Sit down, have your lunch, it was taken away, and then more sitting. Sit, walk, sit, walk, sit, walk. And the only time you had a break from that, to go to the toilet, or for your interviews. Interview with the master. But even the interviews were not much of a break, because the master wasn't like me, nothing like me. The master would look at you and say, "What have you been doing?" And whatever you said, he had the Zen stick, whack. So he said, preferred just staying in the hall than going for an interview. Sometimes I consider that when I see that so many people want to have interviews, that in order to reduce the number of people who get out the Zen stick. But I don't do that. It's not out of compassion, it's a fear, because some of you are bigger than me. You may grab the stick and beat me back. Well, that's what we did once. We had a video of this Zen monastery, and we showed it to the prisoners over in Karnak prison farm. And these prisoners, they were big people. They've been there for all sorts of crimes. And I said, "Oh, don't you try that, Ajahn. If you put a Zen stick in here, we beat you up first." Anyway, so imagine how much meditation that was. And oh yeah, I forgot. In the evening, a little Dhamma talk, and then walk 15 minutes, sit 15 minutes, walk, sit, walk. Just bells all day. And of course, you had to have like 10 o'clock. It was rest time. But the rest was right where you were sitting. You just lay down, you had a little blanket and a wooden pillow or something, and that was your rest. And as soon as you fell asleep, it's like you woke up. Because the time went so quickly, you had to sit there, you couldn't leave. And he said that was so tough. He thought he was a tough guy. But after even 2 or 3 days, your back was aching, your legs were aching, and it was one of the toughest physical things he's ever done. I mean, all of you, you've been meditating here for, I don't know how many days now. Have you got sore legs and sore back and sore bum? Sore tongue? Have you been talking too much? No, it's so sore. There's only 2 or 3 days, another 57 days to go. Oh, it's really tough. And 1 week went past, and he didn't think he could make any longer, because his whole body was aching. He didn't have much exercise. He couldn't sort of stretch out, except at night time. As soon as he stretched out, the gong went, and he had to wake up again. Because he slept really sort of still, but in the morning he would wake up, and there's another so many hours of just walking, sitting, walking. But a week went past. He managed a week. You know what really sort of messed him up? He saw all these Koreans in this retreat. And he looked around, and they were sitting so perfectly still and peaceful. And he thought, how on earth can they do this? And now he was a New Zealander. He thought, like Kiwi pride. If they can do it, I can. So he bore with another week, 2 weeks. Oh, it was hell. But, getting up in the morning, the food was terrible. Just, went to the toilet, but, because the food wasn't really that much, didn't really have to let go very much. He was just sitting and walking and sitting all day. And he's getting so bored. If you think you have a bad retreat, just think what it must be like, one of those Korean retreats. After 2 weeks, Kennedy did another week. And when he got to the halfway mark, there was just so much pain and difficulties. But when you get to the halfway mark, human nature is, I got halfway. If I let go now, just ran away and went home, it'd be like unfaithful to all the endurance I've done so far. So 4 weeks, I've done 4 weeks, I just about survived. Maybe I can survive another 4 weeks. But if ever you start to measure things, like how many days have gone, how many days are left, you find the second half is always much longer than the first half. So the next week was like 2 weeks. The 6th week was like a month. The 7th week was like a year. But he got to the last week, like a milestone. Only 1 more week to go. Just like you got to the milestone, only one more day to go. And that last week was forever. His whole pain, his whole back was exploding with pain. His knees just ached. There's no way he can get into nice quiet meditation. Everything was just pain. And the last day, he woke up. 4 o'clock again, but it was the last day. So the last day meant it wasn't so bad. So he thought. The last day, it was like the torturer was just teasing him up to now. Now, all the different ways of torture were coming out, and his back and his nose and his toes and everything was aching. But of course, then you come to the last 45 minutes. The last meditation. And there was their tradition over there that after the retreat was finished, they'd have like a feast, like to celebrate, whatever food you wanted. And even better than food were the hot baths, the South Korean hot baths. And imagine if your body was just so sore and aching because all that meditation. You can dream of a hot bath, just stretching out in this beautiful hot water, allowing the heat and the water just to melt away all that tension and pain and aches. And he was just dreaming about that. And then he broke the rules a little bit because he opened his eyes to see how many more minutes were left. He was sure it's only about 5 or 6 minutes left after the end of the after the last meditation. He opened his eyes, there's only 2 minutes had gone past. And that's when he started thinking, he told me, maybe the batteries in the clock had run out on the last meditation. Imagine that. And no one noticed it. And that last meditation lasted for 2 hours or 3 hours. Oh my God, what's going on? Should I go and tell somebody? And he closed his eyes again, waited another half an hour and opened his eyes and only another minute had gone past. He said that last meditation lasted like an eon. But of course, everything has to come to an end. That's what happens in, the Buddha teaches. Everything is impermanent, it rises, it has to come to an end. So eventually, after the longest 45 minutes he's ever had in his life, the teacher just rang the bell. Said, oh, that was such a sweet sound. He'd heard the best opera singers, Dame Kiri Kurowa, whatever her name is, and the best orchestras in the world, but that sound of that last bell at the end of the retreat, that was like a heavenly sound. Like many of you said, can you see nimittas through sound or through flesh? He said, yes, you can. That was like a nimitta. Oh, it's so beautiful and so joyful. He'd made it. He'd done something really hard, 60 days of meditation, enduring pain. That was amazing what he'd done. And he was just looking forward, getting ready for the hot bath and the wonderful food. And then the master, the abbot, said, hold on a moment, please, before you go down to the hot baths. And during the interviews, many of you have been saying just how much progress you've made on this retreat and how wonderful it's been. And a couple of you have asked me, is it possible that we can extend this retreat for another couple of weeks? And I was considering that, and I thought it's a wonderful idea. The retreat is not over. Another 2 weeks. And Howell told me that he had no choice. He had to close his eyes. And just 2 more weeks of torture, but it was weird. He didn't feel any pain anymore. He couldn't feel his legs or his back or his sore bottom. He was just trying to figure out who those 2 monks were. And imagining what he was going to do to them once he found out. Totally un-Buddhist. Certainly not a bodhisattva at all. And when he was consumed by anger, the bell went again. 20 minutes had gone past, just like that. And then the abbot said, okay, retreat over, go to your baths. And he told me afterwards, he said he was totally confused. Is the retreat over or is it still going on? What's happening? And just the older monks who've been there quite a while said, the teacher, he does this every year. The same trick. And he said he learned more in that 20 minutes than all the rest of the 60 days. His expectations torture us. Oh, I can't stand this any longer. Oh, okay, it's only another day to go, it's all right. So, of course, we've done many interviews, and you've made wonderful progress in you've been telling me in this meditation. So, a couple of you have asked me, I think it's a very good idea. So shall we carry on the retreat for another couple of days?
Yes.
Now you know who said it. So expectations are torturers. That's one of the things we learn here. That when we really... Actually, by the way, honestly, if you want to stay there for a couple of days, you can. I told that story for many years, but always when we hired a place to do our meditation retreat, it also, as soon as the retreat was over, we had to go out, clean up the place for somebody else to come in. The nice thing about having your own retreat centre, if you really want to, you can. You can stay for an extra couple of days. So I saw all those people with their hands up, so I know who you are. So please, you can't go home tomorrow. You have to stay. But anyway, no, we have something here we call the self-retreats, which is that, if you do really want to stay longer, your meditation is going really well, then you just tell Leha, is that okay, Leha? And you can just stay a bit longer. And no, there was no talks, there's no walks through the forest organised. No, breakfast you make yourself, go to monastery for lunch if you want to lunch, and just, it's your time. And I must admit that is some of the best use of this facility. When people know how to meditate, you've heard all the talks, you know all the jokes better than I know them, and you make use of the place to continue on. So that's available for you. So you can talk towards to Leha if you want to continue on for a few more days, or come back another time to do what we call a self-retreat. Nice and peaceful. But it's not just to hang out. It's not like a free sort of weekend. It's like so you can meditate, be quiet, be still, and enjoy the place. So anyway, so with expectations, we do become a little bit prisoners of time. It is Friday today. So it's right, isn't it? Okay. Friday today. So we're supposed to finish tomorrow. So I wanted to talk more today about just what happens when you do go home. And you may get high and peaceful and still when you are here, but when you go home, how can you continue on this practice? And does it all fall apart? And of course it doesn't just all fall apart. You learn so much here. And it's not even about meditation which you learn. You learn just how to relate to one another even without talking. I've seen many times like that. I've seen people who have been married and they don't talk at all. They've had an argument. Oh, there's this couple once. There's a Thai lady married to an Italian man. And they invited me. They had a little restaurant in Northbridge, and they invited me there to bless the restaurant. We sat down, and she gave all this food. And after offering it, he wasn't a Buddhist; he was a Catholic. After offering all the food, we gave her the blessing. And after she went back, then he came up and said, "What did she say?" And so I said, she just said this, said that. And then he went away, and then she came back, "What did he say?" So we're just having lunch, okay? We're not doing marriage counselling today. And of course, there's this other couple. Well, this is honestly, it was like a young Thai lady married an elderly Aussie man. But it worked out. They had a very good relationship together. But it was absolutely true. She could speak a word of English. And he could speak a word of Thai. So they would talk to each other, but they wouldn't understand what on earth they were saying. And they had this beautiful relationship together. See, that's a trick of having a good relationship if you're married. Make sure you marry someone from another country. You don't understand a word of what they say. They don't understand a word of what you say. And then you can be happy ever after. That's my theory anyway. Not that I know anything. But anyway, you learn so much from this sort of retreat. Not only just about meditation, but also about life. And that's why don't just think this is just about jhanas and enlightenment and stuff. It's also just about how to be peaceful, how to be healthy, how to be happy, how to enjoy the day. There's so many things which we learn to become better people. I'd have mentioned that before, that if you really want to know whether this was a good retreat, it's not about how you feel, just the people you live with. When you go home, how do they relate to you? Do they really feel that you're a better person? And if they do, well done. So often it's happened. This was many years ago. There was an Australian man. He always wanted to go on one of these weekend retreats. Actually, he wanted to go on a 9-day retreat, but that was a bit too much to ask from his wife. So he just asked to go on a weekend retreat. His wife said, "No way. On the weekend, that's where we've got to take the kids to the sport, we've got to do the shopping, we've got to do the chores around the house. There's so much stuff we have to do. And you're going to leave me to do that by myself, you selfish husband? No." So he said, "Okay." When there was another retreat on, he asked the same question. "Is the retreat on this weekend? May I go?" He said, "No, of course you can't go. Mother-in-law is coming around and there's so much work to be done. You said you're going to take the car to get serviced and we've got to..." I said, "Okay." And every time there was a weekend retreat, he kept on asking. She gave the same answer. Basically, "No, we're too busy." But then apparently he told me what happened. There's a weekend retreat, another weekend retreat happening. He said, "It's a weekend retreat this time, can I go?" And she said, she was so surprised that he kept on asking. He said, "What? Okay, you go to your stupid retreat and be selfish and leave me with all the work and looking after the kids and everything else. Go and off you go." He took that as a yes. So off he went on retreat. But what happened next was really brilliant. When he came home from retreat, he was such a nice husband. He was much easier to live with, kinder, just more sensitive to his wife and to his kids. She saw the difference so well, and this was true. The next time there was a weekend retreat, he never asked. She gave him the money and sent him off. Off you go. It's like having a car. I mean, you need your car to get around, but your car needs a service every so often. Just like, your husband needs a service so often. So you say, you send them to a retreat, or your wife send them to a retreat, and they come back all tuned up with loving kindness, with stillness, and with a bit more wisdom. And it's worth it. Which is one of the reasons why. I don't know if you paid to come here, or whether your partner sent you, or your mum and dad sent you, or whatever you did, it's worth it. You find that you go home a more peaceful, calm, less stressed out person. And so that's one of the reasons we tell this story. It's a very old story. Do you know, many years ago, when people would come to a place like Perth, they'd always come in a boat, because the aircraft were not reliable, and there was not that many flights, and they were really expensive. So people would travel in boats. So on this occasion, there was a professor from the UWA, and he was going to give some lectures overseas. And so he got in a boat on Fremantle, and it was only a small passenger boat, but he was quite a well-known person, so had a nice cabin. And the first night at sea, he'd finished his dinner and he went for a walk on the deck of the ship, just for some exercise. And as he was walking on the deck, he saw this old sailor. And this old sailor, he was just looking into the ocean underneath him. And so the professor decided just to have a nice chat with the old man. "How long have you been sailing these oceans?" said the professor. "Oh, all my life. I started as a 14-year-old boy." "Wow," he said, "such a long time. You know that I'm always interested in marine life and all these amazing creatures who swim through these oceans. You must know a lot about marine science." And the old sailor said, "What? Marine science, just of all the currents and the things which live in the oceans and how the oceans work." He said, "Don't know anything about that," said the sailor. "What? said the professor. All these years at sea, all this opportunity, and you never bothered to pick up a book and learn about the oceans beneath you? Nope, said the old sailor. You stupid old man. What a waste of a life. And the professor walked away. You know, you have all opportunities in life, so why don't you make best use of those opportunities? But anyway, the second night at sea, it's a very good meal. So the professor went for a walk again, and he saw the old sailor on duty, on watch again. But this time, the sailor was looking at the sky. It's a beautiful, clear sky with all the stars up in the sky shining. And the professor thought, oh yeah, maybe the old man doesn't know about marine science. And that's not so important, but the stars. In those old days, that's how people would navigate, by the stars. So he said, he surely must know something about astronomy. So he went up to the old man and said, sorry, I said bad things to you last night. But one of my hobbies is astronomy. So let's have a talk about astronomy. What do you think that constellation up there is? I don't know. Just stars, that's all I know, said the old sailor. What, you don't know about the stars above you? You spent all your life sailing these oceans and seen wonderful displays of the stars and the moon and maybe some meteor showers. So haven't you ever learned about astronomy? Nope, said the old man. Don't even know how to spell it. You stupid old man. You stupid old man. What a waste of a life. What a waste of a life. And the professor just walked away the second time. The third night at sea. It was a beautiful meal by the chef. When you have a really good meal, you're in a good mood. That's why I always like to give my talks after a good breakfast. You can tell how good the breakfast was by how deep the talk is. So this was a beautiful dinner, and so the professor went up to the deck and he saw the old sailor again. And this time the old sailor had his eyes closed as a beautiful breeze was wafting over the ocean. And the professor said, again, sorry about the last 2 nights. I'm actually a professor of meteorology. I'm going to give some lectures on the weather. And you must know so much about the weather because the storms can sink the ship or they can drive the sails to go so fast. So let's have a discussion about meteorology. Meteor what? Meteorology, the weather, the winds, the storms. I know nothing about that, said the old man. You know nothing about the weather systems? Oh, what a stupid old man. A really stupid old man. A mega stupid old man. What a waste of a life. And the professor just walked away. And he vowed never ever to waste his time with a stupid old man. Don't worry, the story's coming to an end soon. The fourth night at sea. The professor never had any dinner because it was a stormy night at sea. The boat was rocking and he suffered from seasickness. So he decided it's better not to put any food in his mouth because it's going to come out again anyway. So he just stayed in his cabin. And he couldn't sleep because as it got later and later into the night, the storm got wilder and stronger. His cabin and the whole boat was rocking backwards and forwards in the storm. Forwards and backwards, more and more, until suddenly a crash! And his heart almost stopped. Everything was silent for a few seconds. And then he heard the sound of someone running outside his door. And in panic, he opened the door, and who do you think he saw outside his door? It was the old sailor. And the old sailor stopped. He turned to the professor and said, Professor, in all your years of study, have you ever learnt swimming? Actually, no. You stupid professor, what a waste of life. The ship is sinking. And that story, if you're a sailor, yeah, it's nice to know about marine science, it's nice to know about astronomy, it's interesting to know about the weather, but the one important thing you should always know if you're a sailor is how to swim. So what's the most important thing to know about life? How to keep your head above water in the difficulties of life. How not to drown in the storms which will come as part of nature. How to recognize where you need to go even though you can't see the stars. When you're lost, you have a way to know which way is the right way to go. These are the skills of keeping your head above water in life's difficulties. And that, hopefully, is what you learn here. Not just how to get enlightened. Yeah, that's nice. And it happens. But until that happens, how to enjoy your life, keep healthy, be peaceful, and have a wonderful time, and enjoy so much. One of the things we've seen here is just how much beauty there is. And it's not that far from Perth to go out to the quiet places. When you go out to those quiet places, silent places, you don't need very much to have some great joy and peace and happiness. Just watch the sunsets or the dawns, see the stars at night. You know that when I was a scientist, theoretical physicist, I loved sort of astronomy, astrophysics of the galaxy. I remember that course because that was actually taught by Stephen Hawking's teacher, Professor Sharma. And I do remember many times just, he was talking these amazing things about the astrophysics of the galaxy. And sometimes, I must have looked stupid, I had my mouth open. This is amazing. And quite often I wouldn't take any more notes because I just got off on just what was being described. Just like I said, I think to you, that there is a few chants on loving kindness, for example. When I start chanting that, I can't carry on. We were doing this one chant on the spreading of loving kindness many years ago in Bodhinyana Monastery. That's when Ajahn was here. And I just got to the first verse and I just couldn't go on anymore because what was being said I was doing. It just became so blissful. I just couldn't say anything anymore. Just like sometimes some lectures are so interesting, wow, you can't take any notes, you're just zapped by the profundity of it all. But anyway, I did learn, like many people in astronomy, about the names of the planets, see the planets through the sky and the constellations, the star systems. So you knew what was a star and what was a globular cluster or what was another galaxy. But then, the trouble was, when I knew all the names, I couldn't see the beauty of the stars anymore. All I saw were the names. And it took me a long time, but I managed to do this. I don't know actually how I managed it, because it was such a difficult thing to do, to forget the names. To deliberately look at the stars at night like a child would look at the stars. Just beautiful, gorgeous, captivating, without trying to name it all. And I realized it was a very wise thing to do, because when we name things, it's almost like we control them and own them. I don't know, do any of you remember this? I remember as a kid, used to have these fairy tales, like Grimm's fairy tales, like The Big Bad Wolf or Cinderella. But one of the fairy tales I remember was Rumpelstiltskin. Remember that? A few of you remember that. And that was this poor girl who, I forget exactly why. I mean, she was so poor, and she married a prince or something. But the only reason the prince married her because, sorry, she wanted to marry the prince, but then the prince wasn't interested in her. But this, I don't know what you call him, imp or little hermit in the forest called Rumpelstiltskin, taught her how to take straw and weave it into gold. And so that's why she did that. But the deal was that after 7 days or something, that this girl would have to leave the prince and be the wife of Rumpelstiltskin. And the only way she could escape if she could find out Rumpelstiltskin's name. And of course, she didn't know the name. It hadn't been told yet. It's a weird name. Very weird, Rumpelstiltskin. But of course, eventually, the end of the story was she found out the name of Rumpelstiltskin and was freed. So she could live happily ever after. But I always noticed that in ancient European myths, there was something magic in knowing someone's name. If you knew their name, it's like you had power over them. If you didn't know their name, they were free. And of course, I'd already mentioned that if you are meditating and try and find the names of things, even the names of experiences. Now, is this a nimitta? What is it? Ajahn Brahm, can you please tell me what this is? Give it a name. It's like that as you're trying to control it and own it and have power over it. When you don't know its name, it's hard to possess. You have to let it be. You have to let it go. And that's just similar with the only way I can now enjoy the stars at night is not trying to find out their name. Then it's much more peace and freedom when you don't know things' names. Why do we want? Because names can be very confusing. This, is a story that nuns know, bhikkhunis know, because one of those times I went to visit Dhammasara. Remember, I went to that place before we even owned it. And so in all those years, just go and visit from time to time. So I know that place and how it works and where it is and where's what. So one time they said, Ajahn Brahm, you're only visiting us to do some ceremony. Can you please give us a teaching? Give us a talk. And so I said, well, I haven't got much time for a talk, but okay. I said, I need to go to the toilet first of all. So I asked him, where's the monk's toilet? And of course, you should know, I know where the toilets are. I've been there so many times. I was there before the toilets were built. And so I think it was Ayahasapanya. And she realised something was up. She said, over there you can see the male toilet on the door. So I walked to the male toilet and I pretended to lift my robe up and urinate on the door. I didn't expose myself, they didn't see anything, but I was, Ajahn Brahm, what are you doing? It says on there, male toilet, on the door, so I'm using the toilet. And they said, that's a sign, that is not the male toilet, it's just a sign, the male toilet's inside. Why don't you say that then? On the toilet at Dhammasara, you should have the sign there, male toilet inside. And that's a trouble sometimes with all these names and descriptions. Sometimes we have power over them, but we miss the point. We don't know what those descriptions are there for. And that's why your meditation, what is your meditation? People still miss it. What I said last night or yesterday sometime was really good. That, we're not here to get jhanas or get enlightened. We're here for the peace. Stillness. So what is peace? Peace of mind. That's what you give to other people when you hate them. Give them a piece of your mind. What is stillness? Stillness. I'm still. I'm dumb. Now after a while, instead of knowing the names of these things, you know where their names point to, what they are. Even when we first built Jhana monastery, visitors would come and say, "Where's the monastery?" We had no buildings at that time, just living out in the open. "Where's the monastery?" "It's here." "Can't you see it?" No, I can't see any buildings. People had this idea that a monastery was a building. A monastery is not a building, it's a place. It's the people. It's the atmosphere. This is a retreat center. Where's the retreat center? It's not just the rooms and the dining room and the hall and stuff. It's not even just if we built this, it's not a retreat center until people feel the peace here. The calm, the acceptance. What are we retreating from when we come here? We're retreating from all that striving in life where you have to prove yourself. Prove yourself to your husband, to your wife. Prove yourself to your kids are much better, they just love you. Mostly. Prove yourself to your parents, that's a bit tougher. Prove yourself to your people you work with. Prove yourself to the doctor that you're taking your medication, I don't know. You get so much stress on us. And why? We're just proving ourselves, trying to meet other people's requirements. They're measuring us all the time. So one thing here, you're retreating from that. Retreating from all measuring. A good example of that, there was a retreat center over in Colombo, capital of Sri Lanka. It wasn't run by monks, it was run by lay people. There's a lot of money to be made in teaching retreats. Not here, because we don't charge. But if you go online and see some of the retreats which you can go to, you pay a fortune for those retreats. And this, quite honestly, this is much higher quality here. You have your own room, great food, great jokes. There's a lot of money to be made in teaching retreats. So, of course, many people get into this. And so this retreat in Sri Lanka, there was this rich family in Colombo, and the old grandma or auntie came for a visit to Colombo from the high country. And they said, "Oh, what can we do to our grandmother? We can't take her out shopping. She's not used to expensive things. Can't take her to movies, she doesn't enjoy that. What can we do to show our gratitude to our old matriarch?" One of them came up with a great idea, this retreat, it's a 1-month retreat. Let's sponsor her to go on retreat. Now that's what she really likes. This is a devout Buddhist. And also, we get rid of her for a month. We're very busy. So they asked the grandma, "Oh yeah, I like that." So they sponsored her for 1 month meditation and study retreat. Not just meditation, but actually studying some of the suttas and what they say and how they say it. And so she was really interested in it. And she did very well, because in this retreat, it's very different than the one I do here. In this retreat, at the end of the retreat, after 30 days, they give you some interviews and a test to see how well you've done. Give you some feedback. So they interviewed this auntie and gave her a little written test. And she did so well. At the end of the retreat, the last day, they came up with a certificate for her. "Auntie, congratulations. We've just been looking at your meditation and your understanding of the Dhamma, of the teachings of the Buddha, and we are all in agreement that you are a stream winner. Not a stream enterer, a stream winner. We have a little certificate here for you." And they presented her with this stream winning certificate. Congratulations, Auntie. And once they gave it to her, she was so angry, so upset. And they thought, what? Becoming a stream winner, in Sri Lanka was so wonderful. It's an amazing. People struggle so hard to become a stream winner, and now we say you are. Why are you so angry? And that's when she said, you don't remember me, do you? No. She said, I was here about 5 years ago. 5 years ago, you gave me another certificate saying I was a non-returner. Now you've demoted me. That's why I'm upset. Of course, that story went all around, and that meditation center closed down. I said, you don't measure people, and you don't measure yourself, or do you measure yourself? Have you had a good meditation so far? Yes. Have you? Has the big one come yet? There was another story I made up. In Australia, when before COVID, many migrants were allowed to come into Australia, and some of them were highly educated, but had to somehow, do their exams again because they weren't recognised here. So the unions were very tough here in Australia. So anyway, this migrant came in from the Middle East with his family. He was a doctor, a medical doctor, where he used to live, but because of wars and conflict, he fled with his family to Australia. And he was middle-aged, quite healthy and strong, so he got a job anywhere he could. And that was actually on a building site. So he went to work on a Monday, and when he came home on Monday evening, really tired, but he's a good worker. His wife said, how much did you earn today? He said, nothing. They didn't give me any money today. He went to work on Tuesday and Wednesday, the same thing happened. He worked really hard, and he got no pay. And he got really upset. He said, these Australians, they just exploit migrants. I worked really hard and got nothing for it, absolutely nothing. I'm not going to go to work there anymore. That's why I said, oh, come on, give it another try, another day. So he went to work on Thursday, and he really worked hard on Thursday. And at the end of the day, he saw the boss, and the boss gave him nothing. He said, all right, I'm not going to work there anymore. They just exploit and take advantage of us migrants. But he didn't have anything else to do on Friday, and his wife just almost kicked him out of the house, go to work. So he went to work on the Friday, and he didn't work hard at all. And in the mid-afternoon, the boss gave him a big pay packet and sent him home. When he got home, big smiles, he said, I've finally figured out how it works in Australia. From now on, I'm only going to go to work on Fridays. On payday. And the moral of that story is you can't have every day being a payday. You get paid on Friday for all the work you did Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's a simile I use for when you do have a nice, happy time, a deep meditation or whatever. That's your payday. And you don't just get paid for the meditation you did just then. You get paid for all the meditations and the service and the kindness and the wise actions of body, speech and mind you've done beforehand. And then you get your payday. And each one of you have been just really doing so much good work, helping, cleaning up, being kind to one another, and also meditating, keeping your precepts. So if you haven't had payday yet, I guarantee the check is in the mail. That's just a big excuse people say, isn't it? Yeah, the check's in the mail. Like, many of you saw Ajahn and Velmudito yesterday at our work site, and you saw that they just finished pouring concrete for foundations for the roofs for these huts. And that used to be my job, ordering the concrete for all these buildings. I remember just ringing up, the concrete truck was late, so I called up the office and said, "Oh, this is the monks here. You're supposed to have a concrete truck coming to us. It's late." And the guy I talked to said, "Oh, no worries, it's just left the yard." "Oh, thank you." Half an hour later, still no concrete truck. I rang the office. I got a different person answering the phone this time. "There's the monks here, supposed to be sending some concrete." "Oh, yes," he said, "it's just left the yard." Hang on a moment. Because sometimes people just use that as an excuse, don't they? Well, I also remember ringing up the president of our Buddhist society once, and I got her daughter. The daughter was only about 7 or 8 years of age. I said, "Oh, can I speak to your mummy, please? It's Ajahn Brahm. I need to speak to the president of the Buddhist society." And she said, No, mummy's not here." I said, "This is Ajahn Brahm, I'm the spiritual director." And I could hear her say, "Mummy, it's Ajahn Brahm, are you here?" She was really embarrassed, but I thought it was really funny. So sometimes you can, treat the world with a lot of fun and happiness. And never be afraid. I'm just going to finish off now with one of the favourite monks I got to know was, they used to call him the chief priest of Kuala Lumpur, of Malaysia, Dr. K. Sri Dhammananda. And he was such an outgoing monk. He wasn't a good meditator, but he was very wise. I remember he was the one that one night he asked me, "Come and give a talk at my place." And so I said, "What subject?" "Oh, you choose." You know the subject I chose? Ghosts. And the place had never been so full. It was packed out, people looking through the windows. And I said, "That's only the people. Imagine how many ghosts are here as well, listening, want to hear about themselves." It was really, really funny. Got a great sense of humour, because he was the one who told me the story. And it's true, that Buddhists are the best ghostbusters. Because in a multicultural society, there's all sorts of other religions, like the Taoists, and the Christians, and the Hindus, and the Muslims. And this person who lived in the neighbourhood had a ghost, a very bad ghost in the house, and they tried everything to try and get rid of the ghost, and nothing worked until they got the Buddhists in. I'm not just saying this because I'm a Buddhist. Well, maybe I am, but it was a true story. When they got the Buddhist in, it worked. And he did the chant and got rid of the ghost. But that wasn't the end of the problem, because the ghost had only just gone next door. And the neighbours complained. So he said, "Oh, that was just really a lot of work." He had to go into the new house and another house, and the whole street he had to do chanting to make sure the ghost never just went next door but left the whole neighbourhood. And there are things like ghosts, and they're really interesting. I'm really fascinated by ghosts and what they do. Well, they're going to come today. I don't think they're going to come today, this family. But anyway, if you saw them, you'd know them, recognise them. And one of the Thai families, they come here to offer you food. Really nice people. But anyway, when they bought a new house, I won't say where, but somewhere in Perth, they settled in there, and then the real estate agent never told them that the person who used to live in that house was taking the furniture out to the van and had a heart attack right in front of the front door. And that's where he died. So, he didn't die first to sell the house, he died as he was moving. So anyway, they kept on hearing all these doorbells ring. And they obviously went to answer the doorbell, there was nobody there. Another doorbell, no one was there. So I thought it might be kids playing, ring the doorbell and run away and hide. And once the doorbell rang, they were just right outside, right by the door, so they opened it, no one there. And they realised it was not a person playing jokes on them, it must be a ghost. Do you know what they did? Simple solution. Just take the batteries out the doorbell. It doesn't work. The doorbell still rings. Ghosts have got their own power supply. It's true. I'm not making this up. This is how it was done. But they also had another problem in the house, because the ghost obviously moved in afterwards. But they were watching the TV, some movie or watching sport or something, and the channel would flip all by itself. So they got out the remote control, changed it to the channel they wanted to watch, and it flipped back again. Same ghost. So what can we do? It was nothing wrong with the TV or the remote control. Just the ghost wanted to watch his movies or his programs. Again, a really simple solution. All they did was to buy a second TV. One for the ghost, the one for the... No, they have no trouble. The ghost watches what he wants to watch, and they watch what they want to watch. That's a true story. These things actually happen. And the ghosts don't do any harm. They just make sure everything's okay and they look after you. So anyway, so there's many useful things you learnt on this retreat, I hope. And if ever you're walking down sort of an old part of like Colombo, or you're in Jakarta somewhere, or you're in sort of Bangkok or wherever you are, or Sydney, an old part of Sydney, a few people from Sydney here. You walk past an old part of Sydney late at night and you hear the sound. Put your hand under here. Put your hand under here. So I've helped you make a bit of money to pay off your debts. Put your hand under there and you get a few $1,000s. It's amazing what you learn here. And if you really are poor, just go to your nearest ATM. Nice ATM. May you always be happy and well. May the sun never burn the paint on the outside. May no one ever rob you. Who knows what might happen? Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Yeah. Doctor in the lift. That's a really scary ghost story. Do you want to be scared? Okay, she asked for this. This is a real story. It actually happened. And it's quite well known in Thailand now. But it's many, many, many years ago in Sirirat Hospital, which is opposite the Wat Po central field in Bangkok, the other side of the river in Nonburi. And there was a doctor. It's a big hospital. Even the previous king, King Rama IX, that's where he stayed and where he died. So it's a very good hospital there. But anyway, this doctor was on duty, night shift. And when his shift finished, he was in the elevator going down to the car park, to get in his car and drive home. There's another nurse with him in the elevator at the same time. And then when the lift stopped and the doors opened, the doctor was just panicking. He just went white and he was just really afraid. And he tried as hard as he could to close the door button really fast. And he managed to press that button and the door closed. And the nurse in the lift with him, what did you do that for? There's a patient trying to get in. That's not right that you sort of treat patients like that. And the doctor said, that wasn't a patient. I treated that man last night. He died. He was one of my patients who's dead. That was a ghost. And it's not only that. In Thai hospitals, have you seen this venerable Munissa where they tie a red string around the wrists when somebody dies? She's a ghost. She really is. Oops. Don't tell her afterwards. Anyway, other Thai people, you've seen that before, they tie red strings around the wrist. And so the doctor said, did you not see the red string around her wrist? She's a ghost. She's dead, said the doctor. And right outside the elevator. And at that point, the nurse lifted up her hand. I have a red string too. Does that mean I can't travel in the lift? Ooh, one inside and one outside. The doctor fainted. They found him in the lift, unconscious. This is true. And they revived him and said, what happened? Why did you faint? And that's the story he told. And they checked up. Yeah, I mean, his patient died. That was in the records. But also that nurse, he could recognize her. And she died in a car crash on her way to work that morning. She died in a car crash, but she still came to work as a ghost. And in the lift, and outside the lift, there was a ghost. No escape. Is that scary? No, it's fun. That's one reason we don't have any elevators in Jhana. Okay, enough. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. It's not the right time to tell stories like that. I should tell it at night time. So maybe this evening might tell. No. Yeah, okay. We'll do one tonight.